When I was 30, I married Emily, a high school classmate of mine. Emily was known as a beauty in our class, often referred to as the belle of the class. But she wasn't stuck up. Her friendly nature made her popular with both the guys and the girls. Her father was a CEO of a large company, running a real estate. Emily was, so-called, the heiress of fortune. As for me, I'm just an average Joe, a regular office worker. I didn't come from a wealthy family, nor was I particularly brilliant in studies. Marrying Emily felt like a real miracle. We reunited at a class reunion when we were 25 and hit it off over a popular anime we both liked. Back in high school, Emily and I both loved anime and would often discuss the protagonists and their adventures. Gradually, we started seeing each other outside school and eventually started dating. While we were dating, we never fought, and for a while after getting married, we enjoyed a harmonious life together. Then a year into our marriage, Emily gave birth to our son, Kyle. Kyle's eyes would droop when he laughed, just like mine, and his cute mouth resembled Emily's. She dove into parenting books, determined to do her best as a first-time mom. Our troubles began when Kyle was about to start kindergarten. Kyle should go to a private school. I want him to have a great education, Emily suggested. But we can afford that on my salary. But she smiled and replied, "Don't worry about the money. My dad will cover Kyle's expenses." Honestly, her words hurt me a lot. Although she might have said it casually, I felt like a subtle dig at my lack of earnings. Eventually, Kyle did go to a private kindergarten, thanks to my father-in-law's money. And it didn't stop there. He went on to private elementary and middle school. Emily also enrolled him in tutoring and language classes. With his time consumed by studies and extracurriculars, Kyle started to look a bit stressed when he became a 6th grader. One day, Kyle said to me, "Dad, Mom wants me to be like Grandpa, a CEO, but I want to do other things. I'd rather go to a general public high school rather than a prestigious private school." He said that, letting his true feelings spill out. Hearing that made me feel like a failure as a father. Eventually, I decided to talk to Emily about Kyle's future. I confronted her with Kyle's true feelings, hoping to persuade her. "Hey, about his future path, he's saying he wants to go to a public high school." She replied, "What? No way, that's not acceptable. Educational background is becoming more and more important. Besides, we have the money, thanks to my dad, so we can afford to give him the best. Plus, who knows if the person Kyle marries will be wealthy?" Her words deeply hurt me. I argued, "That's no way to talk. He might have his own path in mind. Let's at least listen to him." But she was adamant. "I know what's best for him. Just go along with it." What's that all about? Our argument led to an icy relationship, and we ended up divorcing before Kyle started 9th grade. Emily fought hard for custody, but Kyle chose to stay with me. "I won't see Mom anymore. I want to live freely," he declared. Emily was shocked to hear that she was disliked by her son and returned to her parents' home. After that, Kyle and I started living together. I fulfilled Kyle's wish and sent him to a public high school. I hadn't seen Emily since our divorce. Being new to the life of just 2 guys, I was honestly overwhelmed and had no spare time or emotional bandwidth. Sometimes, I wondered if she might have met someone nice and remarried. On the other hand, I hadn't met any significant woman since then, just focusing on earning enough for Kyle's education and our living expenses. We couldn't afford luxuries, but Kyle never complained. After high school, Kyle went to an automotive technical school and moved out to study and work simultaneously. My son earned money through part-time jobs to cover every expense other than his tuition. He probably didn't want to burden me. Later, he earned a certification while still in school and got a job through a school referral. With Kyle standing on his own, my financial burden eased. but I felt a sense of emptiness. I was living a bland, ordinary life alone. One day, I was assigned to a 2-week business trip to a rural town a bit far from here. Though I feared getting lost in an unfamiliar place, I managed to find the way to the hotel. The company had booked a long-stay hotel for me, and before checking in, I decided to buy some food at a nearby supermarket. As I was heading to the deli section, I couldn't believe my eyes. What is that? A woman who looked just like Emily crossed in front of me. She was wearing some kind of work clothes. I quickly followed her but lost sight of her. Where is she or Emily? I kept wandering around the supermarket. Shoot, where could she have gone? Ouch, I slightly sprained my foot. I snapped back to reality, questioning what I was even doing. What was I planning to do if I met her again? I couldn't understand why I had tried to follow a woman who resembled my ex-wife. I didn't want to confront her with any resentment, or maybe deep down, I was still holding on to feelings for her after 5 years. I couldn't find an answer. I just wanted to see her again. That much was certain. The next day, after finishing my work, I walked around the area where I had lost sight of her. The supermarket was bustling, especially busy with a sale that day. I couldn't find anyone resembling her. It was a long shot, looking for someone based on such brief information. Maybe she was someone else. And even if I did find her by chance, what then? Just as I was thinking of giving up and heading back, I spotted a woman in the same uniform as the one I saw yesterday. In a hurry, I followed her, making sure not to lose sight of her this time. I wondered what I would do if it turned out to be someone else and couldn't bring myself to call out to her right away. I was also unsure about what to say. Eventually, the woman came out of a door near the restroom, carrying a bucket and mop. I was certain when I saw her face, it was Emily. I hesitated for a while, watching her, but then made up my mind and approached her. "Excuse me, are you Emily?" She saw me, gasped, and her face turned pale. "Tom, is that you?" Her voice trembled as she spoke. The stunned woman standing before me was nothing like the Emily I used to know. With minimal makeup, a gaunt face, and hair not as neatly kept as before. She still had traces of her past beauty, but her cheeks were hollow, showing signs of wear. She said, somewhat embarrassed, "It's been a while. I never expected to meet you here. I didn't want you to see me like this. I'm actually here on a business trip." I was surprised too. I replied. I just wanted to have a proper conversation with her again. I took out a notebook from my bag, scribbled down the name of the hotel where I was staying and my cell number, and handed it to her. I went back to the hotel and waited for a call. I didn't expect her to contact me so soon, but she did, around 7 p.m. "I'm near the hotel right now," she informed. I felt her tension in her voice. We decided to go into a pub next to the hotel. Wanting a private conversation, I requested a private room. After the drinks and food were served, Emily abruptly began speaking. "I'm sorry for what happened back then," she said, with tears in her eyes. She looked up from her downturned face and forced a strained smile at me. While feeling a sense of nostalgia in her expression, my heart felt heavy. Then, I heard about Emily's life after our divorce. I went back to my parents' house after the divorce, but I left after a huge fight with my dad. Suddenly, he started pushing a marriage arrangement on me that I didn't want. "How will you survive without me? You've always depended on someone else. You can't live alone. You should remarry soon." That's what he told her. It seemed that these words from her father wounded her pride. She then declared, "I'm an adult. I can live on my own. I won't rely on Dad anymore," and left her home. But reality was not so easy. Despite being a graduate of a prestigious university, Emily had no work experience, and no company would hire her. so she started working part-time as a supermarket cleaner. Also, having grown up in a wealthy family, her sense of money was different from ordinary people. In spite of her low income, she overspent and ended up living a difficult life, barely making ends meet. "I couldn't do anything on my own, just like my father said," she said with a bitter smile. With alcohol easing the tension, we were able to talk freely. She seemed to be worried about Kyle. "I haven't seen him in so long. Is he doing okay? He probably hates me," she wondered. "Kyle's doing well. He's working hard and is well liked by his boss," I informed her. She responded with a slight tearful voice, "That's good to hear." This strong-willed Emily, once the belle of the class and a CEO's daughter, was no longer there. After that, I started visiting Emily occasionally. I was somehow worried about her. Then one day, she shared some news with me. "My dad called me recently. I had been ignoring him, but I decided to face him and answered the call. He was worried about me. Even in my state, I couldn't help but cry. He said I could come back home if things got tough, but I refused, wanting to live on my own." She also mentioned our reunion. Her father-in-law apparently only said "I see." There was no sign of anger in his voice. Rather, it seemed he sounded relieved. Hearing that their relationship was on the mend, I felt relieved too. After a while, Emily and I talked about starting over from square one. Of course, just as friends for now. I told Kyle about this. Then my son said, "All right, I'm with you too. I want to support her again." Emily quietly murmured, "I owe you an apology. I'm truly sorry. At that time, I thought it was the best thing to do for our child, but I realize now that I was wrong." Tears filled her eyes as she expressed her remorse, and I didn't know what to say. I understood where my ex-wife was coming from, trying to prevent our child from facing hardships in the future. I gently embraced her. After half a month passed and my business trip ended, I returned home. I wondered why I had wanted to see her, why I had searched for her. I wanted to hear Emily's voice, to talk to her like we used to. Sure, there was a time when I was angry and resented her. But now, those feelings had completely vanished. The past is in the past, and she had suffered enough. Maybe our reunion was fated. A week later, I went back to the rural town where Emily was. I had something I needed to say to her. "I need you." I wanted to convey just that. And on my next day off, I planned to bring Kyle to meet her in that rural town, the three of us together. I think you're mistaken. John is a very reliable person." I was surprised by her words. I never thought someone would speak of me in such a way. "The woman's name is Emily. So please keep up the good work," she said, smiling broadly at me. Before meeting her, I had been spending my days in this unpopular shop, feeling unmotivated. "My name is John. I'm the hired manager of this shop, which even today is so quiet you could hear a pin drop. It's so boring. The shop I'm in charge of is a bakery chain. And it's one that's been running at a loss for years. I was assigned to this failing shop for a reason. To put it simply, it was like being exiled. Moreover, I ended up here because of my female boss's harassment." "Oh, the bread isn't selling at all today, is it?" I heard her irritating voice. "She's Susan, the area manager of this district. She spread all sorts of bad rumors about me to HR, and that's how I ended up in this nearly bankrupt bakery." Hello, good to see you. It's always like this lately. The end of this shop might be just around the corner." "Ha ha ha," she snickered. "If you want, I could pull some strings and get you switched to managing another shop." For some reason, she leaned in and asked me this. As if I'd want that. "It's fine. I just have to turn this shop around. Oh, do you think it's that easy? I mean, I couldn't come up with a retort to her words. Well then, good luck. She smirked condescendingly and left the shop. Don't ever come back again, I muttered to myself. Indeed, I needed some sort of secret plan to revive this failing shop. Without spending too much money, is there a way to really captivate the customers? Just as I was thinking this, Emily appeared. Excuse me, I saw a help wanted sign in front of the shop. Could you hire me? Huh? That happened while I was sweeping in front of the shop. A cute young girl approached me. She looked to be in her early 20s. She was a girl with beautiful eyes and curly hair that reached her shoulders, giving her a charming look. Her gaze was fixed on the help wanted poster at the entrance of the shop. Even though the shop was running at a loss, we were always short on staff. But it had been tough finding part-timers, so her offer was timely. Are you interested in an interview? That's great. Do you have a resume with you? No, I just saw the poster outside and thought I'd like to work here on a whim. Sorry for being so spontaneous. By the way, what did you like about this shop? It's always clean, the interior is tidy, and of course, the bread is the best part. We don't get many customers, so we have plenty of time to clean. That's why I'm always doing it. I chuckled at her words. But it gets busy around lunchtime, so I'd be happy if you could work during those hours. Oh, if you'd like. We have forms for resumes in the office. Do you want to fill one out? Really? Can I? Her face lit up. Sure, and could I take your photo with my cell phone for the ID? Yes, please. Thank you. Then, once you're done with the resume and photo, let's have the interview. Okay. Her happy response lifted my spirits too. And that's how she was hired as a part-time female employee. Little did I know that this would bring unexpected good fortune. Welcome, Emily. You're looking cute with that smile today, too. Oh, please stop it. That's not true. Emily, good job on working hard today, too. Thank you, as always. Honestly, I was amazed by the new employee Emily's work ethic. Her handmade name tag, prominently displaying the large name Emily, said always smiling, always happy, and the regular customers were already calling her Emily. It hadn't been 3 days since she learned the cash register, and she already had regulars. And these customers were coming to the shop daily, specifically for her. Amazing. They say there's a knack for customer service, and she definitely had it. John, we're out of sausage bread, so could you make some more? Sure, got it. Plus, ever since she arrived, the bread sales have been doing well. Hiring just one employee had such a significant impact on sales, which was something I hadn't experienced in my years in this industry. Thinking I've hired a real golden egg, I asked the kitchen staff to bake more bread. Murray, it's been busy lately. That's right. The staff, in a good mood after hearing my instructions, started making the requested bread. John, it's less crowded now, so I'll go sweep outside. At Emily, thanks, I appreciate it. Her quick wit and initiative are impressive. She always thinks ahead, understanding what needs to be done and takes action without being asked. Back when I was a student working part-time jobs, I was always the complete opposite, constantly waiting for instructions. While admiring her promise for the future, I often wondered why she was working so hard every day. Then, one day, something caught my eye. Is this okay? I became concerned looking at Emily's schedule. I knew she was a college student working to earn her living expenses, but this seemed like too much. Despite being a college student, she was working over 8 hours a day at the shop, even on weekdays. Can she even manage her college work with this schedule? Then Emily came into the office for a late lunch. Hugh, I'm totally exhausted. but working here might be the most fun I've ever had." Saying that, she flopped down into a chair. I spoke to her. "You're working this much, are you okay? Can you keep up with your college credits?" "Yes, I'm attending night school. That's why I can work a lot during the day." "So you work here and then go to school, isn't that really tough?" "Well, it's tough if you think of it that way, but my brother did the same." I guess that means Emily's brother also worked part-time while attending night school, just like her. Our dad isn't around, and attending a regular college was a bit tough for us, but in these times, it's hard to find a job right after high school, so our mom suggested we go to night school or correspondence school. That's why my brother and I are working during the day and going to college in the evening. I see. Wait, does that mean? Something clicked in my mind as I heard her story. Does your part-time salary here go towards? Yes, it's for my tuition and my family's living expenses. I see, that makes sense. She lives a life completely different from mine. I was impressed by Emily's words. Wow, really? That's admirable. No, it's just normal for us. She looked at me with a puzzled expression in response to my words. It was as if she was thinking, what is this person talking about? Rather, I think you have it tougher, John, managing this struggling shop and all. I'm just doing my job, can't help it. Well, I'm just working here to make ends meet. There's nothing remarkable about that. I see. Her perspective made sense to me. Surely, for her, that's just the norm. But I do praise myself sometimes for doing well, otherwise, I couldn't keep going. She smiled sadly. Looking at her, I realized that despite being younger than me, she was shouldering a lot. Then, a few days later, an incident occurred. Oh, what's with this young girl? Hey, Susan. Susan had come to the shop and started picking on Emily. Even though she's supposedly an area manager, it's really rude to call a part-time female employee a young girl. Emily, taken aback, stared at Susan. But then, she smiled and said to Susan, "Welcome, you must be Susan, the area manager. I've heard about you from John." Wow, quite the professional response. I heard you recently joined and come from a challenging home environment. No father around. Must be tough being in a single-parent household. But you know, we're kind enough to employ you, so you don't end up on the streets. Be grateful. What was that statement? I was furious at Susan's condescending words. It's one thing to belittle me, but I can't stand her insulting my employee. Susan, that's no way to talk. It's disrespectful to a part-time female employee. As I defended her, Emily looked at Susan and firmly said, "John hired me. I'm not employed by you, who don't mind using disrespectful words towards a part-time employee, even though working in customer service." Wait, Emily. John, could you please be quiet for a moment? I tried to intervene, but she turned to me with a smile. Seeing her smile, I was rendered speechless. I felt a strong sense of authority from her. Listen, it's not like John, who was demoted to this loss-making store, is the one paying you. That's not true. John is a very reliable person. Besides, I get my salary from the company, which ultimately comes from the money paid by customers. I'm not being paid by you. I was surprised by her words. I never imagined she could be so assertive, always being so cheerful. You, acting all high and mighty for a part-timer. I could easily have a word with HR and get your evaluation dropped. Susan was red with anger. Then Emily looked out the window and said, Looks like Grandpa's here." A fancy black car had pulled up outside the shop. And seeing the person who got out of the car, I was so surprised that my mouth hung open, unable to close. The person who walked through the shop's door was none other than Mr. Anderson, the president of our company. What is Mr. Anderson here? Even Susan seemed panicked by this. Emily then spoke to Mr. Anderson. "Geez, I had no idea Grandpa managed this store. If I'd known, I wouldn't have applied." "What's wrong with working for me? Don't you like it?" "Well, Grandpa, you always come to check on me and my brother like this. It makes it hard to work." You must be John. Emily always talks about you. Thank you for taking care of my granddaughter," Mr. Anderson said. "Wait, Emily is Mr. Anderson's granddaughter." Susan was staring at Mr. Anderson, turning pale. "No way. I thought she was from a poor single-parent family," Emily spoke up, looking embarrassed. "He's my maternal grandfather. I kept my father's surname after he passed away." Then the night school story. "Well, you know, there are many people in the world who work and attend such schools. Our mother believes in not relying on our grandparents and doing things ourselves. They watch over us as we strive to do our best." "I can't believe you're Mr. Anderson's granddaughter." Susan was pale as a ghost. As Emily said, correspondence and night schools are simply institutions open for working people. It seems that Susan even harbored prejudices against such places that are frequented by those people. "So you're unhappy that my granddaughter attends night school?" "No, not at all. I think she's a commendable young lady, working hard at her job and studies for her mother." Susan forced a smile and gave a sycophantic laugh to Mr. Anderson. Seeing this, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. "What's so funny?" "Oh, nothing. Just remember this." She spat out. "You're an area manager, yet you speak to your junior colleague in such a manner." Mr. Anderson couldn't overlook Susan's inappropriate behavior as a supervisor. Her already pale face turned even paler. Mr. Anderson then said to her, "I've heard a lot about you from the employees. I wanted to see if it was true. I stopped by the store today, but it seems the rumors might be true." "No, that's a misunderstanding, Mr. Anderson. Regardless, I'll be letting HR know about an area manager who verbally abuses the manager and part-timers." "No, please." Susan slumped in defeat. Seeing this, I applauded Mr. Anderson and his granddaughter Emily from the bottom of my heart. After that, Susan was removed from her position as area manager and demoted, now tasked with managing a failing store in the countryside. She was told not to return to headquarters until she turns that store around. As for me, it's busy again today. John, keep up the good work. Since Emily joined, the shop has been bustling every day. Now, we're making enough sales to offset years of losses. It's incredible. So many customers today. It's all thanks to your hard work, John," Emily said with a smile. No, it's all because you came," I said with a smile, and she blushed shyly. "Oh, no, that's not true." Seeing her work hard every day, I realized I couldn't stay down about being transferred here and started doing promotions, flyer distribution, and posting. As usual, the customers who came to the shop were happy with Emily's smile. Today, in the lively bakery, her cheerful voice can be heard. "Welcome. I'm a 29-year-old company employee. I'm still a newbie, having only started working for a company 2 years ago. My family runs a small coffee shop. After graduating from middle school, I didn't go to high school but instead helped out in the shop. Due to the recession, the shop wasn't doing very well, so I decided to get a job for my future. With no particular skills and just being a middle school graduate, I learned how to use a computer to gain some skills for job hunting. I helped in the shop during the day and studied tirelessly at night, even sacrificing sleep, and managed to obtain a few qualifications. Alright, now my resume looks somewhat decent. The qualifications section of my resume, which was once blank, is now filled. However, Finding a job was tough because I'd only finished junior high school, but I was lucky to land a job at the food manufacturing company I currently work for. The employees are all nice, and they've been kind to me with no prior work experience, patiently teaching me the job. But there was one person who didn't think well of me. That was our section chief, Tina. In her mid-30s, she has a rather intense beauty, and unlike me, an elite graduate, Tina graduated from a famous university even I, a middle school graduate, know of. Moreover, being the section chief, she is capable at her job. However, Tina was harsh on employees she didn't like. She clearly disliked those who didn't listen to her, were timid and couldn't speak their mind, and those who were inefficient. Especially, Tina cared about educational background. Confident in her own, she was strict with others. It must be because she had studied diligently. The moment she found out I only finished middle school, she whispered in my ear, "Working with an idiot, I'm so pitiful." There was even a time she mocked me, saying, "You, getting married is utterly impossible." Of course, I was earnest in my job, but not being naturally efficient, I was slow and made mistakes when starting new tasks. While other employees kindly covered for me, Tina would say things like, "That's why you're no good," or "See, people who didn't study can't do their jobs after all." I wasn't the only one she picked on, but I had it the worst. I knew part of the problem was my inability to learn quickly. I kept telling myself that and endured Tina's verbal abuse. There were times I wanted to quit because of the harsh treatment, but I had sources of motivation. One was the lunch my parents made for me. I bring a lunchbox from home every day. The contents are dishes served at the shop. Hamburgers, pasta, potato salad, special cafe menu items packed into a lunchbox. Though I've eaten these dishes since childhood, the dishes my parents made were genuinely delicious. Eating them felt like they filled me with energy. My colleagues often asked me to bring them lunch too. And then, there was my other source of motivation. It's the presence of Rachel. Rachel is the daughter of the company's CEO. She's 4 years younger than me and currently supports the CEO. Rachel isn't exactly a beauty, but she has a gentle personality and an attractive smile. When we pass each other at work, she notices small changes like, "Oh, your tie color is different from usual today." My parents' homemade lunch boxes are popular among the employees, but Rachel especially praises them. "This chili con carne in today's lunch is the best." Watching her enjoy the food, my feelings for her grow day by day. But even so, our positions are quite different. I know harboring romantic feelings for her is unlikely to lead anywhere, but having someone I secretly admire at work makes my days more enjoyable. Tina, while being polite to Rachel on the surface, speaks her mind behind her back. She might be the CEO's daughter or whatever, but she can't really work. It's such a nuisance. That kind of woman is only good for her position. That's what they say about people like her, and she isn't that pretty either. Hearing this, other employees would respond with, "Yeah, that's true," or "She's not as efficient as you, Tina," but their faces clearly showed they were troubled by the conversation. Gradually, I started getting the hang of the job, and it became enjoyable to see my abilities grow day by day. Tina continued to be harsh on me, but I got along well with the other colleagues, leading to a relatively enjoyable work life. Then, one day, after successfully negotiating with a client, I was enthusiastically praised by my boss. The client was a tough one to agree to a contract with. Their representative said, "I was moved by your passion. I definitely want to do business with a company that has employees like you." Securing this contract led to recognition throughout the company, and for the first time, I felt like I had achieved something significant. However, one person seemed to find this annoying. Of course, that was Tina. Actually, it seems Tina had failed in that negotiation with the client, which must have been quite frustrating for her. The fact that I, whom she had always belittled, successfully secured a deal she couldn't, must have been hard for her to accept. Since then, Tina's treatment of me became even worse. She would say, "This order form has the wrong product number. Redo it in 10 minutes, or you won't have any break time," making me redo work even thought there was no mistakes, or come to my desk and rush me, saying, "Too slow, aren't you done yet? I've been waiting forever." This made me panic and led to more mistakes. Then Tina would get angry. "See, you made another mistake. You might have speeded up, but making more errors is pointless." In my mind, I blamed her for rushing me. The other colleagues looked at me with pity but were too afraid of becoming targets themselves to help. I heard that several employees had quit because they couldn't stand Tina's bullying. I've considered quitting due to the harassment and finding a job at another company, but this one offers really good terms and comprehensive benefits. Moreover, as someone who only graduated from junior high, it's unlikely that I would quickly find another job if I started job hunting. So, I had no choice but to endure. One day, while living my daily routine, something happened. "I need this finished by noon today. Think no break if it's not done by 12 o'clock, I was told, and handed a massive stack of order forms. There's no way even a veteran employee could finish this by noon. In fact, it's probably a day's worth of work. I protested that this was impossible, but Tina just said, "No backtalk, just get to work quickly," and then disappeared somewhere. She probably went to touch up her makeup before lunch. Irritated, I reluctantly started processing the order forms. Of course, I couldn't finish in time. The clock hands pointed to 12 o'clock. Maybe I'll have lunch now. From 12 o'clock, it's the designated break time. I hurried to the break room. Entering the break room, I placed my lunchbox on the table. Employees gathered around, peeking at my lunch and saying, "That looks delicious today as well." One of the lunch orders got canceled because they couldn't make it back from a meeting. "Here, have this if you want." "I'll take a bite. Let me have the pasta and this special sausage roll." "Then I'll have the salmon sandwich." "Ah, it tastes nostalgic." You can't really make this kind of food from a cafe at home, can you? Seeing everyone's smiles from just a little bit of food made me genuinely happy. While enjoying lunch and casual conversation, someone approached with loud heel clicks. Ah, those footsteps, in comic book, they might describe this presence as oozing with a velour. I felt a chill down my spine. It was Tina. As soon as she saw my face, she spoke in her usual harsh tone. "Hey, if you're taking a break, that means you've finished the order forms I asked for, right?" Realizing the situation, I answered honestly. "I hadn't finished yet, but I've completed all the urgent tasks. I plan to finish the rest in the afternoon." I responded calmly and matter-of-factly. Then, turning my back to Tina, I continued my lunch. My actions must have really annoyed her. Tina snatched away my lunchbox. "Eating comes later. Work is more important. Get back to work," she said. The other employees tried to calm her down, saying, "Come on, Tina," but she was too enraged to listen. Glancing at my lunchbox, she mocked, "I heard your cafe-running parents made this, but it looks like just an ordinary lunch anyone could make. In fact, it even looks unappetizing. No wonder your shop isn't thriving." I couldn't stand her belittling my parents. I couldn't help but say to Tina, "Please stop making fun of me, and could I have my lunchbox back?" Angered by my response, Tina's face turned red, and she poured tomato sauce all over my lunch. "Hey, what are you doing? This cheap-tasting lunch needs tomato sauce to be edible. It suits a junior high school graduate like you," she said. Her actions shocked the other employees, who remarked, "That's going too far." Tina snorted, "It's the stupid employee's fault for angering me." My anger turned to disbelief at her childish behavior. She stood triumphantly, smiling smugly. I was about to say something to her. Just then, "You are the worst," a loud woman's voice echoed throughout the break room. I looked, and sight was Rachel. That day, Rachel had ordered a homemade lunch from my parents. Not every day, but just on Mondays and Wednesdays. Rachel didn't always come to the office on other weekdays, so she only ordered lunch for days she was certain to be at work. Since it was Wednesday, I had brought an extra lunch box for Rachel. Luckily, her lunch was still safely stored in the break room fridge. Rachel, upset by Tina's food tampering, angrily said, "Tina, this is too much. Apologize to Max right now." But Tina, unable to contain her anger, retorted, "Just because you're the CEO's daughter doesn't make you so high and mighty. I'm older and more knowledgeable in work." Everyone around was stunned by Tina's words. Rachel's eyes were red with anger. Then, a large man in a black suit blocked the view. "What's all this noise about?" The voice belonged to the CEO. He was always in the office on Mondays and Wednesdays for client meetings. His office wasn't far from the break room, so he had heard the commotion. Even Tina was panicked by the CEO's arrival. The surrounding employees spilled everything that had happened. The CEO muttered, "I see," and said, "Tina, I wanted to talk to you about something. Could you come to my office for a moment?" "Yes, sir." With that, Tina was taken away by the CEO. "Really, what a terrible thing to do," I muttered. Rachel then said, "I'll eat something else, so please have the other lunchbox, Max." I wanted her to eat it, so I said, "No, please have the lunchbox, Rachel, and consider it a thank you for helping me today. No need to pay." Then Rachel suggested, "How about we share it?" Initially surprised, I was persuaded by her, and we ended up enjoying the lunchbox together that day. Soon after, Tina was demoted from her position as section chief. The reason, of course, was her relentless power harassment towards her junior colleagues. Initially just power harassment, lately, Tina had been slacking off work, dumping it on her junior colleagues. Apparently, her negligence in duties was the final straw. Tina was relegated to a branch office, infamously known as the graveyard. However, rumors about her had spread even to that branch, and finding the environment hostile, Tina left the company within a month of her transfer. Since Tina's departure, I've been able to work more freely and comfortably. After a while, I was suddenly called by the CEO. In the CEO's office, Rachel was also present. Sitting on the sofa, feeling anxious about whether I did something wrong, the CEO said, "Thank you for always providing delicious lunchboxes for Rachel." Then he added, "Actually, I've occasionally helped myself to them too. That food is truly exceptional. It somehow reminds me of her cooking." It seems he was referring to his wife. Rachel's mother had passed away due to illness when she was 5. Rachel always loved the bolognese pasta her mother made, and she said she still remembers the taste and hasn't forgotten it. Coincidentally, that taste closely resembled the bolognese served at my parents' cafe, reminding her of her mother. After the CEO finished explaining, he said, "Anyway, the delicious lunchboxes are great. I have a request," and proposed the following. He wanted me to provide lunchboxes on a larger scale for the company employees. Of course, our cafe wasn't selling lunchboxes. We did catering, but not frequently. For that day, I responded, "I'll discuss it with my parents," and they agreed quite readily. Rather, my mother was enthusiastic, saying, "I'm so happy to be praised so much. I'll work even harder from now on." My father also expressed his appreciation, remarking, "It's really a blessing." Since then, my parents began providing lunchboxes for the company. The CEO, impressed with the taste, introduced my parents' shop through his wide network, and now it's thriving more than ever. Furthermore, The lunchbox became a catalyst for me and Rachel to grow closer, and recently we even started going out for meals together. While I'm hesitant to convey my feelings, I hope to gradually build a closer relationship with Rachel, taking things slowly. Of course, I'll continue to work hard at my job too. I look forward to a fulfilling life in both work and romance. The first time I truly believed that I could only rely on myself was during my teens. I was 17 when my parents got divorced. The reason was my dad's affair. I didn't side with either of them. My parents were indifferent towards me, and when they decided to divorce, I overheard them saying terrible things. "I'm sorry, but I can't take care of that kid. I want to live freely from now on. I have a life with my new wife, too. I didn't want to be with them if that's what it took. So, I decided to live on my own." My dad agreed to pay for my high school education. For college, I decided to use scholarships. During my college years, I worked hard and was always at the top of my class. My job hunting went smoothly, and I successfully landed a job at a major company. I no longer needed anything from my mom or dad. Feeling that I could live on my own was liberating. After joining the company, I worked hard for the company's sake and soon was entrusted with important tasks. My colleagues and seniors seemed to dislike me. They were probably jealous of me efficiently doing my job and getting praise from the bosses. I always thought, if you have time to be jealous, you should be working hard instead. Looking back, I was an arrogant newbie with grandiose ideas, even though I had just joined a company. Years passed, and I was put in charge of training new employees. The new recruits were slow and had a hard time grasping things, which was frustrating every day. Then, one day, a subordinate asked me a question. I need help with this part." The document the subordinate showed me was something I had explained before. At that time, I had a lot of work piled up, and I was irritated, so I snapped at him. "You're too inefficient. You should have remembered this the first time. How many times do I have to tell you?" The timid subordinate looked like he was about to cry. I didn't consider his feelings or reflect on my way of speaking. After that, the subordinate stopped asking me for help. A few days later, the subordinate made a major mistake with a client. He had ordered a drastically wrong number of items. Apparently, he had questions about the order quantity but was too afraid to ask me. Despite our apologies, the client wouldn't forgive us. And thus, we lost the contract with that company. Some time later, I was called by the department head, John. "The personnel changes are coming up soon. You're being transferred to a branch in a remote area," he said. Hearing this, my mind went blank. That branch was known as a backwoods branch, significantly smaller than the headquarters and handling only minor projects. In essence, I was demoted. Come on, this just isn't right. Frustrated, I confronted John about it. "Is this because of the mistake my subordinate made recently? That wasn't my fault, it was his. He should be the one held responsible, not me." To my surprise, John said something unexpected. "Demotion? No, it's not like that. That place is my hometown, actually. The air is fresh and it's a really nice place. It might just provide what you're currently missing." Saying that, he patted my shoulder and left. News of my demotion spread quickly around the office, and everyone seemed to have a serves-you-right look on their face. I thought about quitting the company altogether, but instead, I resolved to make a success of the rural branch and show them all. About a month after being told of my demotion, I finished preparing for the move and was driving to the new town. It was pouring rain that day, with strong winds. The rain lashing against the windshield made it hard to see. As I was driving irritably, suddenly a young woman dashed out in front of my car. "Watch out!" I braked just in time, and she was safe, but stood there, stunned. I was worried, so that I stopped the car and got out. She was completely drenched, not even holding an umbrella. "Are you okay? Why are you out here without an umbrella?" When I asked, she answered with an anxious look. "I dropped an important charm. I was looking for it when my umbrella got blown away." It must have been really important to her. She was on the verge of tears. "A charm. I'll help you look for it." I handed her a towel from my car and found myself offering to help. "No, it's okay. I couldn't ask you to." She looked down as she spoke. "First, you need to change out of those wet clothes before you catch a cold. There's a big clothing store just over there. Shall we buy you some dry clothes?" Yes. Somehow, I couldn't leave her alone, and I drove her to the roadside clothing store. After parking the car, I handed her an umbrella. "I'll wait here for you." "Thank you so much." After waiting in the car for about 15 minutes, she returned wearing a new shirt and jeans. We then went back to where she lost her charm and started searching. "It fell on the road, right? Are we looking in the right area?" "Yes, I think so." We searched thoroughly from one end of the crosswalk to the other, under the umbrella. Then, something glittered in a gutter across the road. "Isn't that your charm over there?" Yes, that's it." She carefully wrapped her hands around the light blue charm and seemed relieved. "I'm so glad we found it." And she repeatedly thanked me, saying, "Thank you so much. You've been a great help." By then, the rain had almost stopped. She smiled brightly and nodded in gratitude before leaving. It's been a while since someone thanked me like that. I felt somewhat bashful. Then, I got back into my car and headed to the rented apartment provided by the company. The apartment was quite spacious for one person and nicely furnished. However, there wasn't a supermarket or even a convenience store nearby. The closest supermarket was a 30-minute drive away. Moreover, that supermarket didn't have a great selection, leaving me feeling uncertain about my future here. A few days later, I headed to the office for my first day of work. The branch office was about the size of a slightly larger convenience store. "Can I even work in such a small place?" I muttered to myself unintentionally. As I opened the door and entered with a bit of nervousness, I noticed the office, with just a few desks lined up, was cozy, and unlike the sterile main office, there were potted plants around, and everything was neatly organized, creating a warm atmosphere. Did I arrive too early? There didn't seem to be anyone inside yet. Maybe the female staff were changing. Just then, I heard a woman's voice from behind. "Good morning." As I quickly turned around to greet her, I was surprised to see the woman standing in front of me. "It's you." It was the same woman I had helped look for the charm that day. She also looked surprised, her eyes wide as she saw me. "Actually, I've been transferred here starting today." As I said this, she asked, "Could you be the Michael that Dad mentioned?" "Wait, Dad," I thought, but first, I introduced myself. "Yes, hi Michael. I've come from the headquarters. Nice to meet you, but I'm really surprised to meet you here." Her name, it turned out, was Emily. And she was John's daughter. John had left his family in the countryside while working at the headquarters, and though I had briefly heard he had a daughter, I never imagined she'd be working at the branch. Emily said, "Dad mentioned you. He said you are always hard working in your job." Still harboring some dissatisfaction about being demoted, I couldn't find a proper response to her words and just laughed it off. Life in the countryside turned out to be unexpectedly comfortable. No one looked at me strangely for being demoted, and all the staff were kind and helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can ask as many times as you need until you understand. "Michael, you're young, unlike Bob, so you won't forget things easily, right?" Right." Everyone around chuckled. It was a very homey atmosphere. While I asked questions about things I didn't understand, I quickly and efficiently handled the tasks I knew. Emily often praised me, saying, "Michael really knows his job. Everyone here is so glad you came. You've been a big help." Before, I was not good at being relied upon, but since coming here, I've started to enjoy being needed. At the same time, I was determined to become someone others could rely on. Several months later, John visited the workplace. Initially, I had resented him, but now, there was not a trace of that feeling left, only gratitude. I immediately went up to greet him with a smile. "Long time no see." I noticed he had the same charm on his bag that Emily always wore. The charm I had helped her find in the rain was a family matching item. That's why she had searched for it so desperately, drenched in the rain. John smiled warmly and said, "It's been a while. You look well, that's good to see." John approached me and said, "I'd like to have a word with you, just the two of us." Looking at me, he said, "Michael, you've changed in a good way. You look great. I guess it's because everyone here is so nice, and I enjoy the work. When I was first transferred, I honestly resented you, thinking, why do I have to be demoted? But you intentionally sent me here, didn't you?" John replied, "Exactly, Michael, that's right. I wanted you to learn more amongst people. Remember, you always tried to do everything on your own." To his words, I jokingly yet sincerely responded, "Thank you for demoting me." But that was truly how I felt. John laughed and said, "I told you, it's not a demotion." Furthermore, he mentioned, "Emily talks about you all the time. Thank you for teaching my daughter at work. Also, the HR department will probably ask about your future plans. If you wish, you can return to the headquarters. Just think about it for now." Months ago, I would have immediately thought about returning to the headquarters. But now, I was really uncertain. Word about whether I would return to the headquarters spread quickly in this small company. The employees there said, "It would be sad if you leave." Emily said, "Michael, are you going back to the headquarters? But maybe a competent person like you belongs there," her eyes welling up with tears. Some time later, a representative from the HR department asked me about my preferred place of work, and I said I wanted to keep working at this branch for a while. I didn't know for how long, but I had decided not to return to the headquarters until I became an employee who could lead this branch. Then, I got a message from John. "I heard you decided to stay there and work hard. Keep looking after Emily for me," he said. After that, I continued to work with a relaxed attitude at the countryside branch. Eventually, I was even entrusted with a managerial role. The staff and I would have a drink together once a month, creating a time to bond and enjoy each other's company. Recently, I've felt our bonds growing even stronger. Gradually, Emily and I also became closer. One day, on our way back from a drinking party, when it was just the two of us, she looked into my eyes and said, "This is sudden, but what do you think of me? I like you, Michael. If you don't mind, would you be my boyfriend?" She confessed to me first. Already attracted to Emily, I didn't hesitate to accept her confession. And so, we officially became a couple. Since then, every day has been fulfilling, and I hope these days continue forever. I never thought such happiness would come my way. Now, I can finally look back on my past calmly. I got a job with this company with a twisted heart after being abandoned by my parents. At work, I was selfish and didn't trust anyone. But coming to this town, thanks to the kind people around me, I started to genuinely want to work hard for everyone's sake. I'm grateful to John for sending me to this town. I plan to make Emily, my colleagues, and everyone else happy from now on.